My name is Celeste Montgomery, and at 62, I thought I'd seen the worst life could throw at me. Losing my husband, Richard, to pancreatic cancer when Marcus was just 15 had hollowed me out, leaving a void that echoed with memories of our shared dreams. Lazy Sundays in Piedmont Park, hand in hand under the Atlanta skyline, planning trips we'd never take. I'd poured every ounce of my shattered heart into raising Marcus, working double shifts as a high school English teacher in the Fulton County schools, grading papers late into the night while he slept, dreaming of the man he'd become. He did become that man. Kind, ambitious, a claims adjuster at State Farm with a steady life. But on my 62nd birthday, in the warm glow of Giovanni's trattoria, that life cracked open, revealing a darkness I never imagined could lurk in my own family. The restaurant was alive with the hum of Friday night diners, families laughing over plates of pasta, the air thick with the comforting sense of garlic bread and simmering marinara. Marcus had insisted on this place, knowing it was my favorite since Richard and I had our first date here decades ago. I could almost see us then, young and full of hope, Richard's laugh booming as he twirled me on the sidewalk outside after dinner, the city lights twinkling like stars we'd claimed as our own. The wooden booths, the checkered tablecloths, they all whispered of happier times, times before the diagnosis, before the endless hospital visits where I'd hold his hand, whispering promises of forever that cancer stole away. Allison, my daughter-in-law of 5 years, sat across from me, her auburn hair catching the soft candlelight, her smile practiced but never quite warm. I'd always chalked it up to her reserved nature, a product of her upbringing in a broken home in rural Georgia, or so she'd told us. "Happy birthday, Celeste," she said, her voice light but with an undercurrent that now, in hindsight, chills me, like the first chill of autumn winds signaling the end of summer's warmth. Marcus poured the California Cabernet Sauvignon, his eyes crinkling with the same joy I'd seen when he graduated college, a moment that had filled me with pride so fierce it brought tears, reminding me of Richard's absence at the ceremony, how I'd clutched the program like a lifeline. "To Mom," he toasted, standing tall, his voice thick with emotion that tugged at my heartstrings, pulling me back to the day he was born, that tiny bundle in my arms, Richard beaming beside me in the hospital room, our world complete. For being our rock after Dad, for teaching me resilience, love, and how to make the world's best peach cobbler. Laughter bubbled up from me, mingled with tears. This was family, small, imperfect, but mine. Allison raised her glass too, her fingers white-knuckled around the stem. "To a special mother-in-law," she added, the word special hanging oddly like a note out of tune, echoing the awkward silences at family gatherings where she'd hover, her eyes assessing rather than affectionate. As I lifted my glass, a young waitress with a ponytail approached, her movements fluid as she pretended to clear a crumb. A folded note slipped onto the table, her eyes meeting mine with urgent intensity. Jada Reynolds, though I didn't know her name then, walked away swiftly. My heart stuttered, a familiar panic rising, the same I'd felt when the doctor delivered Richard's diagnosis, the room spinning as words like stage 4 shattered our future. Under the table, I unfolded it. "Don't drink that. Your life is in danger. Trust me." The world tilted. Panic clawed at my chest, a raw primal fear that transported me back to the hospital room where Richard took his last breath. His hand cold in mine, the monitor's flatline piercing the air like a scream I couldn't release. I'd sat there for hours after, numb, wondering how to tell Marcus, how to face a world without the man who'd been my anchor. Was this a prank? A mistake? But her eyes, they held no humor, only warning. I glanced at Marcus, chatted animatedly about work, and Allison, whose gaze flickered to my glass with something akin to anticipation. My mind raced. Through memories, Allison's frequent visits, her concerned suggestions about my health, the subtle digs at my memory, had it all been leading here? I remembered one afternoon vividly now, as if the note had unlocked a floodgate. Allison arriving unannounced with a thermos of herbal tea, her smile too bright. "I made this just for you, Celeste. It's supposed to help with energy." I sipped it gratefully, but soon after a fog descended, my thoughts scattering like leaves in a storm. I had forgotten where I'd put my keys, then accused the cat of hiding them, laughing it off, but inside fear gnawed. Was this the beginning of the end? Like my own mother's slow slide into Alzheimer's? Her eyes vacant as she forgot my name? Excusing myself to the restroom, I locked the door, the note crumpling in my fist. Tears stung my eyes as doubt flooded in, waves of grief crashing over me anew. Who would want me dead? Me, a retired teacher with a modest savings, a house in East Atlanta paid off through years of sacrifice, scrimping on vacations to fund Marcus's college? Richard's life insurance was my safety net, meant for Marcus, a legacy of love from a man who'd worked 2 jobs to build it. The thought of betrayal from within my family sliced deeper than any knife, deeper even than the night Marcus, at 16, screamed at me in teenage rage, "Why couldn't you save Dad?" Words that had pierced my soul, leaving scars of guilt I'd carried silently. I splashed water on my face, staring at the mirror, lines etched by laughter and loss, eyes that had seen too much pain, eyes that had watched Richard waste away, his once strong frame reduced to frailty, but his love unwavering until the end. "Pull yourself together, Celeste," I whispered, echoing Richard's words during his chemo days, when he'd squeeze my hand and say, "We're in this together, love." Back at the table, I forced a smile, but my heart pounded like it had during Richard's final hours, when every breath he took felt like a countdown. When Marcus turned away, I swapped glasses with Allison's in a fluid motion born of desperation. Her glass, now mine, I raised it. "To us," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside, a storm that raged with echoes of past losses. Richard's funeral, the rain-soaked cemetery where I'd stood alone after everyone left, whispering promises to carry on. We drank. The wine was smooth, but bitterness coated my tongue. Not from the vintage, but from suspicion, a taste reminiscent of the hospital coffee I'd choked down night after night. 5 minutes. That's all it took for the horror to unfold. Allison's hand pressed to her stomach, her face draining of color. "I feel off," she murmured, confusion etching her features. Marcus's concern was immediate, his hand on her arm, but I watched, a mix of dread and vindication twisting my gut. Pulling me back to the moment I found Richard unresponsive, my screams echoing in the empty house. Beads of sweat purled on her forehead, her breathing grew ragged. Memories flashed. Her bringing me tea last month, the dizziness that followed, dismissed as age. But now I recalled it in excruciating detail, the way the room had spun after that cup, colors blurring like a watercolor painting in rain, my hands trembling as I tried to dial Marcus, only to forget his number midway. I'd collapsed on the couch, heart racing erratically, visions of Richard dancing in my mind, his voice faint. "Hold on, Celeste." Allison had found me like that, her face a mask of concern. "Oh, Celeste, you look so pale. Maybe it's time we talked about getting you some help." Her words planted seeds of doubt, making me question my own vitality, echoing the doctor's gentle suggestions during Richard's illness that I prepare for the worst. She collapsed, eyes glazing over, skin gray. Chaos erupted, diners gasping, Marcus shouting for help. I called 911, my voice calm, but inside a scream echoed, the same scream I'd stifled at Richard's bedside to stay strong for Marcus. This was meant for me. In the ambulance to St. Jude Medical Center, Marcus gripped my hand, his fear mirroring the boy who'd lost his father, the boy who'd clung to me at the funeral, his small frame shaking with sobs that mirrored my own hidden grief. I clutched the note, a lifeline in the nightmare, wondering if Richard was watching over me, his spirit the guardian angel I'd prayed for in lonely nights. In the ER's sterile glare, we waited, the disinfectant smell evoking Richard's final days, the beeps of machines, a haunting symphony I had hoped never to hear again. Marcus paced, muttering denials, his face contorted in the same anguish he'd shown when I told him about his father's passing, collapsing into my arms as if the world had ended. When the doctor approached, bearded and solemn, my heart plummeted, flashbacks assaulting me. The oncologist's grave tone. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Montgomery. It's terminal. Digoxin overdose. Lethal levels. Poison. Deliberate." I showed Marcus the note, recounting the swap. His world shattered, disbelief, then agony, his eyes filling with tears like the day he learned of Richard's death, blaming himself for not being there more. "Someone tried to kill you?" he whispered, his voice breaking, pulling me into a hug that reminded me of our shared morning, the way we'd held each other through the storm. Blood tests on me revealed traces, chronic exposure, dizziness I'd blamed on age, fatigue on retirement. They were her doing. One episode stood out now, expanded in my mind's eye. 3 weeks ago, Allison had baked cookies, just because, she said with that stiff smile. I'd eaten two, savoring the chocolate chips, but soon a heaviness settled, my limbs leaden, thoughts fracturing. I'd stared at a photo of Richard on the mantel, his smile frozen in time, and for a moment, I couldn't remember our wedding day, the vows under the magnolia tree in Grant Park, his kiss tasting of promise. Panic had surged then, tears streaming as I whispered to Richard, "Don't leave me again." Allison had arrived later, checking in, and noted my confusion to Marcus over dinner, her voice dripping false sympathy. Marcus confessed her worries, my confusion, suggestions of nursing homes, power of attorney. Each revelation was a dagger, twisting with memories of my own vulnerability after Richard's death, when I'd nearly broken, only Marcus's needs pulling me back. Detective Lee unraveled more: Allison's CNA past, access to drugs, suspicious deaths at facilities. Jada's grandmother, poisoned similarly. Allison's motive? Greed. My inheritance, her debts. Flashbacks haunted me. Our wedding toast 5 years ago, Allison raising her glass at the reception in a downtown Atlanta ballroom, her eyes on Marcus with possession, not love. I'd felt a flicker of unease then, dismissed his maternal protectiveness, but now it bloomed into regret. Had I failed to see the signs, like I failed to catch Richard's cancer early? Another flashback, her helpful soups during a supposed flu last winter, each spoonful laced with something that left me bedridden, dreaming feverishly of Richard calling me home, his voice a whisper in the delirium. How many times had she watched me weaken, her concern a veil for calculation? Marcus confronted her in the hospital, her weak denials crumbling. "Debts, stress," she cried, but no remorse, only self-pity, her tears fake compared to the genuine grief I'd shed over Richard's grave, planting flowers each anniversary. Divorce followed, then her arrest. The trial was a storm, media frenzy, testimonies tearing open old wounds. Jada's courage moved me. We bonded over loss, her stories of her grandmother mirroring my memories of Richard's mother, who'd passed peacefully, a contrast that deepened my sorrow. Healing came slowly. Marcus and I rebuilt, walks in Grant Park evoking old joys. Richard proposing there under the oaks, his knee in the grass, ring glinting in sunlight. On my 63rd birthday, simple and safe, love triumphed, but with flashbacks softened by time. Richard's laugh, Marcus's first steps. Scars linger, nightmares of that glass, echoes of betrayal. Yet, in the depths of pain, I found strength, a deeper bond with my son. Family isn't blood, it's the hearts that endure.